is all the nature that we have. There's iceberg watching in Newfoundland and Labrador, and that is the eastern part of Canada. Like, that's a decent sized boat, and that is a massive iceberg. Like, look at that. The boat is tiny, you can hardly see it. This iceberg would be kind of intimidating in a way. They do say that on average icebergs weigh between 100,000 and 200,000 tons, but they can weigh several million tons and easily tower over 20 stories above the waterline. So can you imagine what it is that we don't see underwater? Massive. The Dempster Highway in Yukon and Northwest Territories. And as the name of the territory states, that's the northwest part of Canada. Parksdale Beach Festival in BC. It'd be really neat to see some of the entries that people create. I'm not sure how big YouTube is, but I'm gonna censor that just in case. I envy people who have artistic talent like this. I mean, I couldn't even make a stick figure with sand. Le Pays de la Sagouine in New Brunswick. I love bridges like that, they're so pretty. I was in New Brunswick for a little bit, but I definitely didn't see everything I wanted to see by any means. North of Superior, Lake Superior in Ontario. Look at the color of that water. Stunning. It's a beautiful sunset. Could you just picture yourself sitting here away from technology, away from the rush of everyday life, just watching the sunset or the sunrise. Dinosaur Provincial Park in Badlands, Alberta. Oh wow, I was actually looking at the dinosaur here. I wasn't looking at this. That is just gorgeous. And that's what I mean, like there's so many kind of like untouched areas in Canada to be appreciated. Like the history behind all of this. I can just imagine all the stories people could share. Kayaking with killer whales in BC. I've always wanted to do this, but part of me is afraid that because I've wanted to do it for so long, that if I actually got the chance, I would be so overwhelmed that I'm not sure I could actually be in the moment and take it in. I would just be like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Old Quebec City in the province of Quebec. That's the eastern part of Canada. That's the Chateau Frontenac National Park in Nunavut. Look at that water and the mountains. Wow. Cape Spear National Historic Site in Newfoundland and Labrador. I really want to visit the east coast of Canada. Just something about it calls my name. Look at all that greenery. Little Dr. Lake, Northwest Territories. I don't think I've heard of that. Nice fire by the water. Oh this is where it ports. The world's largest totem pole in British Columbia. I don't know if I've said this before, but British Columbia is the western part of Canada, right on the west coast. That would be really, really interesting to see in person. I tried to educate myself about Indigenous peoples, and this would be just a great opportunity to learn more. Visiting places like that. The land of the living skies in Saskatchewan. That's kind of like central Canada. What is that? That is a piping plover. Did I get that right? Not sure. But wildlife is something I'm so interested in, especially photography-wise. These creatures are always amazing. This is in Northwest Territories. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. I don't want to be disrespectful. Like, this is so gorgeous. Would definitely be an amazing place to visit as well. Lake Louise in Alberta. I think a lot of people know about this place. And I mean, I can see why. The mountains, that lake, are just incredibly stunning. Lands o' Meadows National Historic Site in Newfoundland and Labrador. That almost looks like where a hobbit would live. Just reminds me of Lord of the Rings for some reason. I love boardwalks like this. Oh, it's like a Viking longhouse. Montreal Jazz Festival. Another very well-known event. I could not picture myself with that many people around. Mary's Point Shorebird Reserve in New Brunswick. What is that? A sandpiper. Cute. Yep, that's definitely a lot of birds here. Wow. Mount Robson Provincial Park in BC. Like, these mountains look like they're not even real. Just so pretty. There is something about the trees in BC though. They seem to be more majestic in British Columbia for some reason. Like taking a walk in the forest with all these massive trees around you. It would definitely be time well spent. Big muddy Badlands and the Outlaw Trail in Saskatchewan. Hi, little fella. This is such beautiful colors too. Algonquin Provincial Park in Ontario. A lot of people think the Gatineau Hot Air Balloon Festival in Quebec. I have been there several times. I don't know if they actually still have this event or not, but it's really cool to see like so many balloons up in the air at the same time. Quebec and Gatineau have a lot of beautiful like lakes and rivers too. Virginia Falls and Northwest Territories. Like, look at that. Okay, well, yeah, that puts the other picture to shame. I can just see myself sitting here, being in my own little world, escaping. Prince Edward Islands National Park. It's a tiny little island. Red Sandstone Cliffs. I would love to see that in person. Again, wildlife is just one of my favorite things. I saw a blue heron today on my walk with my dog. I thought they were gone for the winter because the ospreys are gone. Head smashed in buffalo jump in Alberta. I have no idea what that is. The CN Tower in Ontario. That's in Toronto. I have been there I think once, maybe twice, I'm not sure, but I've never made it up. I'm too afraid. I think if I was that high up and it would be nature, it would be a different story, but because it's a cityscape, I don't know why that freaks me out, but yeah, I couldn't do it. I couldn't make it up here. Cirque of the Unclimbables in Northwest Territories. Like, that is just beautiful. Just untouched natural beauty. Okay, well, again, every time I say something like that, the next picture is like so much more than words can describe. Grasslands National Park in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan and Manitoba are kind of like central Canada. Again, wildlife. I love owls. They're so neat to take photos of. Witless Bay Ecological. Did I say that right? Ecological Reserve in Newfoundland and Labrador. There is something about puffins that just make my heart happy. Like, look at these little guys. They're just so cute. The Inside Passage in BC. That doesn't ring a bell. Point Opile Lighthouse in Quebec. There's still a significant amount of lighthouses. A lot of them are just historical sites at this point. Beautiful falls. Agawa Canyon in Ontario. Nahanni National Park Reserve in Northwest Territories. Again, hopefully I said that right. There's just something about canoes, like on the shoreline, in front of mountains. Just looks so peaceful. I'm not sure if that's grizzly or black bear. I would assume up there most likely would be grizzly. I think that's one of the only animals that I am terrified of seeing when I'm out in nature. Baffin Islands in Nunavut. So pretty, but I know living conditions can be tough up there too. Pacific Rim National Park Reserve in BC. I love that kind of shot where the sun just kind of streams through the trees and the branches and the leaves. Makes it look like a fairy tale. Reserve in BC. There's something about that tree branch that's just really neat. Bay of Fundy Tides, New Brunswick. I was there, but I only saw like a little tiny part of it. I actually have a couple of rocks from there. Like, look at that. It would be so neat to see that in person. All these little natural structures. Montmorency Falls in Quebec. As a fan of winter and snow, this is beautiful. I've never done ice climbing. I'm sure it would be really challenging, but it would be a breathtaking way to explore. The Calgary Stampede in Alberta. I'm sure a lot of people know about that, even non-Canadians. It's very popular. Top of the World Highway in Yukon Territory. Snowy owls are one of my favorite birds of prey. It looks like a painting. Great Sand Hills in Saskatchewan. Again, the wildlife. This is so neat that that's in Canada. I didn't realize we had that. Cape St. Mary's Ecological Reserve in Newfoundland. Look at all the birds. Beachcombing by helicopter in BC. I love rocks. If I was in a place like that, I would be just looking at the rocks for hours, most likely. Moraine Lake and the Valley of Ten Peaks. It's lovely. Again, with the canoes, I love these shots. Confederation Bridge in Prince Edward Island. It's 12.9 kilometers, 8 miles. That's really neat. Old Montreal. I went there when I was pretty young. I don't remember much of it, but I'm sure I'd appreciate it more as an adult. The Fortress of Lewisburg in Nova Scotia. It'd be interesting to just learn about the history of it all. Dawson City in Yukon. Like, look at that. So nice. Small little town. Or city, sorry. Île Bonaventure and Percé Rock, Quebec. These are gannets. Oh, I love this kind of shot too. The Rocky Mountaineer train trip, Alberta and BC. That'd be a really interesting way to travel and explore 2 provinces. Wow. Now that is just magnificent. You see the greenery, you see the water, you see the snow, mountains. Perfection. Skating on the Rideau Canal in Ontario. That's in Ottawa. I used to go there every year with my school. The ice sculptures were always so interesting to see as well. Cape Bonavista. I don't know why I said it like that. Cape Bonavista in Newfoundland. Looks like such a neat house with the red and the white. Vancouver seawall. just like camping and you get out of your tent and this is the first thing you see. Magdalen Island seals, birds, and sandcastles in Quebec. Hi, little fella. Riding on Stone Provincial Park in Alberta. That would actually be neat to see that in person. Mount Logan in Yukon. Now this is what makes my heart go, wow. It's so pretty. The National Park Reserve in BC. Again, that looks like a painting. Oh, there's one of my animals I'm scared of. Bears. Killarney and the Crush Mountains in Ontario. Get another canoe. Icefield Parkway in Alberta. Like, I have no words for this. It's just perfection. All of these pictures. Shediac, lobster capital, New Brunswick. Not a fan of seafood, but I can definitely appreciate the artwork that goes behind any occupation. Churchill's polar bears in Manitoba. There, I think this is the first time they feature Manitoba. I mean, polar bears are something you wouldn't want to mess with, but they would be really cool to observe. Comorn National Park, Newfoundland. Don't think I've heard of this. Another canoe. Wow. That's what I mean when I say that there's so much in Canada that I would love to visit. Yellowknife, Canada's diamond capital in the Northwest Territories. There's actually a lot of mines in the northern parts of Canada. Stanley Park in BC. Grand Man in New Brunswick. Now that's a beautiful canoe actually. It'd be quite the experience to actually build one. Dog sledding in Quebec. I know a lot of people who have tried this and really liked it. Niagara Falls and Niagara Wine Country in Ontario. I've seen this in person, and again, I was young, but it was pretty incredible. And I guess this is the wine country. I don't know why the wine just reminded me of that episode in Schitt's Creek where Moira has that commercial with Herb Ertlinger, I think his name was, and she just couldn't get the name right. It's funny. Great Northern Arts Festival in Northwest Territories. Beadwork is something I really admire. Athabasca Glacier in Alberta. I would not want to be driving down that road. I mean, it's pretty to look at. Signal Hill National Historic Site in Newfoundland. Again, all that greenery. Brackendale bald eagles in BC. Now that is one bird of prey that I've not had the chance to do much photography with. They are magical beings in my opinion. I have only seen maybe a handful or a bit more than that in my lifetime. Cape Enrage, New Brunswick. It's an interesting name. fishing on Lake Simcoe, Ontario. I used to do a lot of ice fishing when I was younger. Massachusetts, British Columbia. Quebec Winter Carnival and Ice Hotel. I think that's called the Bonhomme Carnaval. I remember him from festivals that I've been to. Oh wow, that would be so interesting actually. Can you imagine having your sleeping bag right on a big block of ice, a bed of ice? It's something I would not mind trying. Booked Dune, New Brunswick. I love these bridges. I think I said that earlier, but there's just something about them that's, I don't know. It seems like it's out of a movie. Waterton Lakes National Park, Alberta. Tea at the Empress in BC. That kind of rings a bell. I'm not sure. Kluane National Park in Yukon. Again, I would not want to be driving down these roads during a storm. Canadian Mint, Manitoba. Entry Island in Quebec. That almost looks like it would be like Saskatchewan or Manitoba. Quebec has like so many things. They have like mountains and beaches and lakes and Della Falls in BC. Wow. Absolutely gorgeous. Lucy Maud, Montgomery, Cavendish National Historic Site in Prince Edward Island. I would love to take a walk down this road. Beachy Island Historic Site in Nunavut. Like that's what I mean. The living must not always be easy there. But it's a beautiful area. Banff Springs Hotel, Alberta. I would imagine that it is not a cheap getaway to go there. Reversing Falls in New Brunswick. I actually did get a chance to stop here when I was in New